I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that.
I'm sorry to segue, and you can go another way, but the margins tax is an example. I mean, why do you want to punish people that make, and by the way, the margins tax, I mean, it's not a tax even on profit. From what I understand, it is a tax on gross income. So technically, you can have more expenses than your income. You can actually be in debt. You're still going to get taxed on the gross. What are we trying to do? You know, I think it was Chief Justice John Marshall that said, the power to tax is the power to destroy. That's absolutely right. Mm-hmm. When you want something to flourish, you subsidize it. When you want something to die, you tax it. And small businesses right now are being taxed to death. Is it a shock? Wow, real surprise that small business development and job creation is suffocating under this regime?
Okay. All right, let's keep on the let's keep on that same theme, but we're going to bring it closer to home a little bit. Gold Butte.
Yes.
Some people say that if we make Gold Butte an NCA with Wilderness, that will increase the economic development opportunities in Mesquite.
Yes.
Other people say that if we make Gold Butte an NCA with Wilderness, it will hurt economic development and opportunities, recreational opportunities, from which we can gain an economic boost in the Mesquite area. So
I lean towards the latter. Look,
I wouldn't have guessed.
I mean, look, I am not against people in government that are doing a job. They have a job to do. They're given a mandate, and they're trying to do the job and do it to the best of their ability. But when a mandate is given from Washington, D.C., the objectives, the agenda, the idea of what they believe is important for potential national landmarks like Gold Butte is going to be different than the local residents that actually live in the community and the state. I think in general, I'm a 10th Amendment kind of a guy. I believe that politics is best, policy is best when it is developed from the local communities that it impacts the most. Just as a general principle, I'm not hostile to bureaucracies out of Washington, D.C. or Carson City. But in general, I just know that government works best when it is worked from the local community, and the local community has as much of an impact and leverage on those government officials exercising that policy. And I just believe that if we were to go through that process with NCA and Wilderness, that we're going to lose more control, that the people that are surrounding and live in the communities and might want to do business or have access to the Gold Butte are going to have less leverage, less of an impact, less of a say. Their voice is not going to be heard as clearly. Washington, as in so many other cases, is going to have a bigger voice than the people that live right in that community. I'm against that.
Well, you know, one of the reasons why they want to make Gold Butte an NCA with Wilderness is because there is an offset in the conservation plan overall, that for every acre you devote to conservation, that's another acre that you can develop. And a lot of the reason why they want to make Gold Butte 250 or 300,000 acres, 350,000 acres of conservation is because that allows then even more development in the Las Vegas Valley, not necessarily Mesquite, because pretty soon Mesquite's going to be surrounded. We're going to be landlocked if this goes through. So, you know, we're going to pay the price so that Las Vegas can continue developing. But even Las Vegas now is becoming landlocked with conservation areas, monuments, and things like that.
How about our entire state is landlocked?
Yes, let's go to that too.
Over 85% of our state is owned or controlled by the federal government. There's something wrong with that.
So do you think that So what do you think the state should do about that, or what should be done about
I
that?
think it should have been done a long time ago.
Okay.
One of the most powerful people, not in our state, in our country, has been the Senate Majority Leader for the last 7 years, going into year number 8. And that's Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid. He was Senate Majority Leader in all 8 of those years. He had a president of the same party. 4 of those years, he had the Speaker of the House, his same party, while he was the leader of the Senate. The whole Congress was run by his political party. If he wanted to liberate some of that 86% or 85.5% of land that is owned by the federal government, don't you think he had a little bit of leverage to do so? Don't you think he could have done so? He did not do so. And I blame him. I blame Stephen Horsford, who's part of his regime. But I also blame some Republicans that have been in power as well and have not been a loud enough and effective enough voice at pushing back against that phenomenon. One of the reasons I've come to Nevada is I led a program called the Affordable Power Alliance, where we promoted from the perspective of the consumer that we need to have an all of the above energy strategy. I believe in renewables. I believe in fossil fuel-based energy sources of energy. I believe in a true all of the above strategy, not a rhetoric all of the above strategy. Our president, God bless him, he talks about an all of the above strategy and then punishes some forms of energy while he rewards others, picking winners and losers. I'm against that because at the end of the day, that philosophy and that policy rises the cost of energy, as it has in this state. And when energy prices increase, well, who gets it in the neck? It's not Steve Wynn. It's rank and file working class folk. And so we established this Affordable Power Alliance, and we went all across this nation, but in particular to all points out west, the Dakotas, Montana, several times in Texas. It brought me to this state, Utah, and other points out west. So much so, it was such a successful campaign that we decided to make our Western Regional headquarters, our headquarters for the entire Affordable Power Alliance here in Las Vegas, in North Las Vegas in particular. But the main argument that we used there was that we need to develop our American resources. It's not only a national security question, but for me, more fundamentally, it's an economic question.
So I'm going to guess you're for the Keystone Pipeline.
Big time. I mean, it is a national disgrace and nightmare. It is almost treasonous, the degree to which the Obama administration has stifled and just twiddled their thumbs around this case. If the Canadians end up selling that oil to China, which is a possibility, it is a disaster. It's such a lose-lose scenario. It's a lose-lose scenario because that oil that comes out of the oil sands in Canada, when it goes to China, it is going to be developed in a much less responsible, environmentally responsible way than we would do it here, number one. Number two, it takes away a trade opportunity with our closest trade partner. Not only close in terms of the GDP that is generated from the trade between both countries, but also closest in terms of our values, in terms of our cultures. We're the same people. I joke around and say Canada is one big suburb of the United States.
Don't tell the Canadians.
I won't tell the Canadians that. Please don't tell the Canadians I said that. But they're our friends.
We're kidding.
They are our cousins, if you will. How can we not have a win-win relationship that is going to help the American people, help the Canadian people, and help the environment over the long term when you compare it to the Canadians selling that oil to the Chinese?
All right, well, let's go back to Gold Butte, and you answered about 3 of my questions right there, so that's good. Let's go back to Gold Butte. My personal concern with the Gold Butte legislation is that the Virgin Valley Water District owns water rights that will be part of the NCA designation, not the wilderness designation, but the NCA designation.
So my question to you is, how much loss of sovereignty are the people of this community going to have when that comes to fruition, when it comes to water rights and their ability to use their own water. And I'm not an expert, but my instinct tells me we're going to have less access and less sovereignty over our own water, not more.
Stephen Horsford's legislation for the Gold Butte NCA has provisions in there to protect existing water facilities.
Right.
Of which there are none. Senator Reid's legislation for the Gold Butte NCA with Wilderness has no language in it whatsoever pertaining to the water rights and access to them. So, you know,
Why do I believe that if, God forbid, these two pieces of legislation, both of which I oppose, come to conference, and that's, of course, when the Senate passes a bill and then the House of Representatives pass a bill, they go to a combined conference to negotiate the language of the bill, and then they send it back to both houses of Congress to vote on. If it passes, the president signs it. Why do I believe that when that bill goes to conference, Horsford's bill is going to look a lot more like Reid's bill than Horsford's bill? I don't know why. Maybe call me a cynic. But somehow I just believe that when it comes to the leverage relationship, that Senator Reid is going to get what Senator Reid wants. So it will be my mission when I take Stephen Horsford's seat is not to come up with some shadow bill that is just like Harry Reid's, but to defeat Harry Reid's bill with some legislation that gives more sovereignty when it comes to water rights, when it comes to land usage and maximizing land to the people of those communities and the communities that Gold Butte serves.
okay, pretty much answered all those questions on Gold Butte. Thank you.